Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Lauren. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. Thanks for hanging out today. Hopefully you'll learn some spooky stuff today that we have to talk about. I always thought that haunted places with children were the creepiest thing ever. And I've done a lot of research about like child ghosts. A lot of people don't think that child ghosts are a real thing. They say that children are way too innocent to ever haunt anywhere or to ever cross over to the other side by themselves or to be in limbo, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people do not believe that child ghosts exist. I, on the other hand, believe they can. I do think that children can have their own spirits. They can hang out with us here. We can see them. A lot of Hollywood will show us that children are scary. They're usually not children. Usually they're a demon or Satan trying to get to us, all this other stuff. But I do want to talk about this place I found. I've known about this place for a very long time, and I wanted to share some stories about it and a little bit of history and just what has gone on in this place in Northwest Ohio, close to where I live. It's actually about or it was 45 minutes away from where I live. It is no longer around, which is really sad. I would love to do an investigation there. I will give you guys a brief history about it. I do want to share just a little bit of history and how it came to be and kind of what the mission was for this place, as well as things that kind of unraveled after this place was torn down. I also want to see if I can share some stories with you guys from people that used to live there, and we'll kind of see where it goes. But you guys should all grab a beverage, hang out with me, post any comments, stories, anything you have down below. Let me know what you think. I do want to apologize. I'm hoping with me sitting in front of my Christmas tree, I wanted to be festive and be like the cool kid. I see so many people do it where they sit in front of their tree, and I just think it's so cute. I'm hoping the lighting back here doesn't start acting weird just because of all my lights on my tree. I mean, just look at how pretty it is. I got like all my stuff wrapped down here. But anyway, on to the actual video. If you guys are here for the first time, go ahead and subscribe, leave some comments, say hi, let me know who you are and how you found this place, and I will absolutely reply to everybody. But until then, let's get started. So you guys know I live in Northwest Ohio. I live about 45 minutes south of Toledo. I live in a larger city. Toledo is like where we go for a lot of our shopping. We go up there to do, you know, different concerts and stuff like that. I'm very familiar with Toledo, Maumee, Rossford area. And today we are going to talk about the Miami Children's Home, which is in Maumee, Ohio, which is right outside of Toledo. And this place was opened in 1867 by a group of philanthropists that wanted to basically open a place for children that didn't have a home for them to live. It was an orphanage, as they would call it back in the days. Now they call them group homes. We have a lot of foster care, but back in 1867, they decided to open the Miami Children's Home. And this place had a long running history. This building was ran under the Protestant Orphans Home for about 20 something years. In 1890, Lucas County, Ohio actually bought out the place, and they changed the name to the Lucas County Children's Home. Their main mission of this place, like any orphanage typically, is that they wanted to take care of the children, try to find them homes, and then any children that were there until they turned 18 and were adults, they wanted to kind of teach them how to go into adulthood, how to take care of themselves, how to move on in life without a family. So a lot of it was taking care of these children and educating them. But another large part to this was that they wanted this entire operation, the whole children's home, to be self-sufficient. So they were growing their own crops, they were building their own things. They basically had their own little community where children learned how to take care of themselves. In the event that they sadly were not adopted out, they would be able to take care of themselves as they grew into adulthood. Records indicate that by about 1900, there were around 100 children living in the home. With the Great Depression, though, that number grew to nearly 400 children. There were a lot of kids there. There were a lot of renovations that needed done. They actually remodeled a ton of the building, and they started actually taking in a lot of disabled and abused children as well. They actually continued to do a ton of renovations over the years. In 1954, they did even more, and then in 1960, they renamed themselves to the Miami Children's Home, which is what it was known for the duration of its time until it closed down. We all know that group homes are very much needed, and this place was a huge safe haven for a lot of children that had nowhere to turn, had nowhere to go. They had a lot of children there, like I said. But things started changing as more research was being done about children in orphanages and group homes as opposed to children that they could foster to different families and eventually be adopted out. And as this research grew and as more people wanted to foster children and eventually adopt them out, the orphanage started dwindling. By 1986, the Miami Children's Home closed its doors to the orphanage part, but the part for the disabled children remained until 1993, and then they actually shut their doors. It took the next year for the Lucas County Children's Services to actually be relocated. They moved their offices, moved all of their equipment, everything to a different location, and then everything was silent. There were children there once before, and there was nothing left. It was empty, silent, and a lot of things were going on under the surface that nobody knew about. So actually in 1997, Lucas County ended up selling this whole building and everything to the city of Maumee for only $1. But they had to promise that they would use the building and it would benefit the community in one way or another. Sadly, in July of 2004, everything was demolished, torn down, nothing was left. All 18 buildings came down, and instead in its place were the Riverside Commons, which are apartment buildings that I'm pretty sure are still standing actually in Maumee. But when these bulldozers came in and started tearing down, a lot of dark secrets came to the surface that happened at the Miami Children's Home, which makes it a very spooky place for me and makes it somewhere I would have loved to have visited and investigated if it was still standing. I would still love to go to the grounds and see what I could find, but I want to share with you guys a little bit of what these bulldozers and construction workers found. So as they demolished this place, they actually found a human skeleton. They had ended up calling the Maumee police as well as a couple of local archaeologists to see what was going on and to kind of uncover and see if they could identify this person. The person was not identified, and they actually found 40 skeletons in total of men, women, and children. There was not a cemetery on the property. These were all unmarked graves. They were shallow graves, and nobody knew they were there. This wasn't the first time, though, that they found skeletons on this property. In April of 1956, when they were actually doing earlier renovations, they found another 8 full skeletons. The superintendent at the time of the home demanded that they be reburied somewhere else on the property. He was very adamant in saying they were just early settlers from a long time ago and that they were nobody from this time era. The Ohio Genealogical Society had something else to say, though. They said that this was probably from an unmarked cemetery on the property of the Miami Children's Home, and that it was there from the old Fort Miami settlement, which was long ago. So as if finding unmarked graves on this property and 40 human skeletons was not enough, things got even more weird. Bowling Green State University's library actually held documents that said there were children buried on the property that had died at the turn of the 20th century. The home actually did not have a cemetery. They were not supposed to bury anybody there, and they did, and they had documented it. Thankfully, people found the documents and kind of understood what was going on and where these bodies had come from. When news of these documents actually broke and people started hearing about it, a lot of people started exploring the old tunnels and everything underneath of these buildings. And what they found was a lot of debris and junk in multiple rooms beneath. There were tunnels that actually connected all 18 buildings. They held all the rooms. They held all of these toys from children. They had old children's clothes. They had a lot of junk, and you could see actually where these children were living at one point in time. They also would hear children whispering. They'd hear toys down the hallway. They would hear children playing. And they actually felt a lot of cold spots. Like I said, I've never investigated there. I can't really tell you guys what I think. I've never been there myself, so I don't want to go off of somebody else's evidence and tell you guys like, hey, there's children there, it's haunted or whatever, but this is what I have researched. This is what I know. I could see it. I could definitely see that this place was, you hear whispers and stuff, but I also don't know the group that had investigated this place. I don't know their reputation or anything like that, so I can't tell you whether or not I truly think that that is legitimate. But those are the claims. The cold spots, children whispering, toys being played with, children running up and down the halls. And I would love to actually be there and see if I could find anything. A lot of people claim orphanages are, really mean places. I know we've all seen Annie the movie. There's a lot of abuse and bullying going on, and that is actually exactly what happened at the Miami Children's Home. And I kind of want to read you guys a couple of stories from people that used to live there. One former resident said he would often escape from the torment by hiding in the attic space above the main entrance. It was a safe place for him, and he would often hide his most prized possessions here to keep them from being stolen by the other kids. There were times when he would be up in this attic, enjoying the dark solitude, that he would hear the soft laughter of unseen children coming from somewhere in the room with him. After a while, he says, you just get used to it. The tunnels, he says, were the worst place to be for the children in the home. The small rooms down there beneath the buildings of the Miami Children's Home, he says, were used for punishment. Mostly solitary confinement. But there were also other reasons the kids of the home hated being in the tunnels. It was common knowledge among the residents of the home that if you spent any length of time in the tunnels, you were bound to hear and see a lot of weird things. Many reported the unmistakable feeling of being watched and sensing unseen presences walking the corridors with them. In one room, there was a barber's chair that would often spin all by itself. Then there was the sound of faint music that was sometimes heard drifting out of the dark. The worst, though, was the sound of screaming that would sometimes shatter the stillness of the tunnels. Screams that came from inside empty rooms. That is the recollection of one person, and I do want to read you guys another recollection of somebody else that lived there. I do like reading a lot of forums when it comes to this kind of stuff. A lot of people have had experiences, whether or not they investigated there or lived at different locations, and I really like seeing what other people have to say and seeing if it sounds like something plausible or seeing if I could even debunk it myself. But I did find one very interesting article from someone that says he used to live in the home for about 4 years, and I want to read it to you guys. This was posted 10 years ago on a forum. It says, I can verify the happenings from the Miami Children's Center due to the fact I lived there for approximately 4 years. The main entrance attic area, which we talked about where that one guy used to hide, was a favorite place to hide, and there were things moved on a daily basis. These were carefully placed and hidden things that I didn't tell or show anyone. I've heard children's laughter and figured it was a child that had died there and still wanted someone to play with. Not many of the kids went up there and were scared to venture too far into the basement. So I almost wonder, talking about the place that he was hiding, I wonder if this is the same guy from the other research article I read and if he's just like telling the story again. This one definitely goes more in depth though. The farthest building all the way back to the right on the riverside was the receiving room. This was for the kids that newly arrived and were not yet placed. We were kept in there sometimes for over a year if there wasn't any openings in the girls' or the boys' halls. The basement was where the washer and dryer were kept, and it was a punishment to be given that chore. I kind of liked the solitude, and the events that I saw weren't too scary. The only bad part was the tunnels that led from the buildings underground. They were attached from all the buildings for easy transfers that didn't want to be detected or publicly seen. Which makes me wonder what kind of things were going on here, that they had tunnels and they had a lot of things that they didn't want to be seen. So if you guys have any idea or have heard anything about this home or other group homes in your area, please let me know. The barred doors were kept locked on most of them when I was there, but many times I could hear screaming down the long dark halls and cries for help. I was kept in the teen girls' hall for over 2 years due to my situation and saw quite a bit and heard even more. Nothing bad ever happened to me from a haunting, just in real life. The sensing of someone else in the room was often, and I would just talk to them as if there was another person in the room, which made me look kind of crazy. But I found it comforting, and it was almost like a friend. There was also a barber's chair in the basement when I would cut the preteen boys' hair. There were a few times that I went down there and heard music, and the chair was twirling around when there was nobody there. In another room was something like a dentist chair. That room I didn't like and heard screams every now and then when I knew nobody was in there. Everyone was afraid of being in that room. And that is all that this person had to say about it. Like I said, when they actually tore down this place a little over a decade ago, they replaced it with Riverside Commons, which is a large apartment complex. I would be really interested in actually talking to people that live there now and seeing if they've heard any children or heard screams or seen any ghostly figures that would look like children. So I'm not sure if anybody has really investigated that. I think it would be cool just to be on like the old property and kind of see where everything happened. I think orphanages are scary places to begin with. You're homeless, you don't have a family, you don't really know what to expect from your future, and that alone, no matter what age you are, is very terrifying. And I know back in these times, a lot of abuse took place, a lot of neglect. Like I said, there was bullying there. And it's just really sad to hear about what some of these children went through. I do have a soft spot for children, so it's rough hearing that and kind of like knowing what they went through. But I feel like that was just a thing with orphanages, is you were bullied a lot and a lot of abuse took place there. I'm sure it was a very stressful situation, a very stressful place to live. And that kid did say it was kind of like hearing a ghost talk to you and knowing it wasn't a real person, but talking back because you wanted a friend and it felt like a friend. I think that's incredibly sad, and it's just like crazy what happened there. But that's all I have to say for you guys today. If you guys have anything to add in about the Miami Children's Home or any orphanages around you, or anything you've ever heard about orphanages, children spirits, please let me know down below. You guys can go ahead and leave comments. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Seeking Chills, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Bye.